Hey, what's up? Welcome to the latest episode of the Dads in the Class podcast. I'm your host, Dion Chavis, the Glad Dad, family engagement educator. And this is the podcast that we do. We try to do it every week. We missed a couple of weeks because I was out of town. I wasn't feeling too good. But we're back with a brand new episode with a brand new guest. And this is a great episode. So I definitely want you all to share it, to be sure that you subscribe to the podcast on all platforms. This is where we talk about all things fatherhood engagement. We have fathers up here. We talk about education, and we talk about just how we can get more engaged and how we can be a little bit more engaged in our kids' education and engaged in the things that they have going on as they're growing up. So for this episode, I got a real good brother on the show. Glad he's here. Glad we could finally connect on this platform. My man, Joe. I want to Stiltner. Is that correct?
That's perfect, man. You got it.
my man Joe is here, and Joe is just a good brother. We connected some months back doing some fatherhood work. We were doing kind of like a virtual conference for fatherhood.gov and the ad count. Well, I guess it was fatherhood.gov. Was that right?
Yeah, and the ad council PSA.
Yeah. So we connected doing that, and then we just kind of bonded over our love for our kids and also for our love of hip hop. Y'all know I'm a hip hop head, and found out that Joe is a hip hop lover. And, we just kind of connected and bonded, and we talk pretty regularly through Facebook. And I just thought it would be a good idea to have him come on the podcast and come on the show. And he said this is the highlight of his Friday night. So I told him if this is the best thing that he got going, then we gotta get him a tighter friend group or something, because I ain't really all that. I'm not I ain't nothing to write home about, but I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he's on the show, man. And I really want to just commend him for the work that he's doing. And I can't wait for him to share his story. Very powerful story. I can't wait for him to share his story and just talk to us about what he has going on in terms of fatherhood and how he is engaging with his kids. So Joe, welcome to the show, sir.
Oh man, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for real, man. Ever since we first started talking about getting up, man, it's been on my calendar. I've been counting it down.
Well, you're here now, man. So we want to talk about your fatherhood journey. So first and foremost, how many kids do you have, Joe? How many kids you got?
All right, man. I've got 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls. What ages?
Ages from 3 to 16.
Okay. So I would say you almost like me. Well, you kind of you're all like me, because my youngest is 5 and my oldest is 19. So I call them I call them the bookends, man. Like they are on 2 separate sides of the spectrum. So let's dive into that a little bit. Having 4 kids, one that's 16 and one that's 3. If you're anything like me, then you know that raising a 3-year-old now, as opposed to raising a 3-year-old 13 years ago, is totally different, right?
Way different. Way
different. So how have you been able to adapt and adjust to this new, I don't want to call it a new type of parenting, but how would you adapt to parenting in, I guess, the 21st century, we should say?
Man, it really is different. And what's wild about, when you have multiple kids, you learn something new each way. So it's like every new one you have gets more knowledge than the one you had before, so they each kind of get it better. But it's been an adjustment, man, because, you got the juxtaposition always of maybe how we were raised, our generation, versus how things are now. And one thing that I still is, has been a big adjustment for me is the idea of talking to my kids about how they feel. When I was a kid running around, I don't remember very many people being worried about how it felt. So that's definitely, I think, a big difference is, being more aware on an emotional level, checking in with them. That's something I've really came into versus now compared to when I was just got my fatherhood T-shirt trying to figure things out.
What about the way that you discipline? Do you discipline differently now than you did with your oldest?
Definitely. Now it's more, I think I've discovered the difference between discipline and punishment. And I
Mm,
think you very intentionally use the word discipline
hmm hmm
because
hmm
there is a distinct difference.
Yeah, I think, for me, man, I think age has a lot to do with it too, right? Because not well, I wouldn't even say age. I would say maturity
Yeah,
becomes a big part of it, because a lot of times you realize that sometimes when, for those who beat their kids, I've never beat either of my children. Um, I've never imposed any sort of physical punishment on either of them. But when my daughter was growing up, I wasn't opposed to it. Right now, I'm opposed to it. Like I'm staunchly against like beating my kids, and I have reasons for that have come with age and maturity. One of those things for me is that like spanking to me is it's assault. Right? And we don't look at it like that, but for me, I'm like, I don't necessarily want my child to be fearful of me. I want them to respect me, but I don't want them to be fearful of me. And I think that's something that for me had to come with time, right?
yeah,
And patience is a part of it, and the things that you learn as you're going through this parenting journey, it just it changes you, and your approach, for a lot of us, it has to change. You know what I mean? Because I don't think you can raise a child the same way that you raised a child before this one, because every child is different. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. That's
I think
another
every
great point, man.
yeah, yeah. I don't think it's a cookie cutter way to raising kids. Every child is different, and all of us have to kind of be in tune to, the emotional intelligence portion of parenting, and that's something that, for a lot of us growing up in the '80s and '90s, like we didn't learn. Right, our parents didn't ask us how we felt. You know what I mean? Like, you better feel like getting in there and washing them dishes, or you better feel like getting out there and cutting that grass. Like,
Right?
how you felt. You know what I mean?
Feel like doing whatever I say to do.
Exactly. And don't talk back while you
Yeah,
do it. So I think that is a part of the journey, man, that I think is so beautiful, that as you mature as a parent, you start to realize, like, all right, well, maybe I could do this a little bit different and still get some really, really great results. And I think that's what we want. Like, as dads, that's what we um desire. Like, we want to see the results, like the fruits of our labor.
and you hit it, man, because results is what it's all about, right? Especially for us as men. What do we love? Sports. The sports comes
Hmm
down to results. It's a result driven business, right? And that's how the world works, right? When you get a job, you are rewarded for the results that you produce. And
hmm
so that's kind of, really looking at things is, what do I want? Right. I want a well rounded kid. I want a kid to understand the importance of X, Y, and Z. What's the best approach for getting that point across? It usually isn't cut and tail. You know what I mean? Usually busting butt isn't really going to make a big difference or really get a message through. It just creates that fear that you talked about. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between how we were raised and how we're raising.
Yeah, so let's dive into your fatherhood journey. I think a big part of your journey and a big part of your struggle, and I hope you don't mind if we talk about kind of your struggles with addiction, right?
No problem.
Yeah. So if we could, let's talk about how your journey through addiction and into fatherhood, being as both powerful parts of your story, inspiring parts of your story. How has the experience that you've had in your life, how have they kind of shaped your perspective on fatherhood?
It really highlighted the importance of it, man. Between seeing the effects that fatherhood had on me, as far as my dad, he was there in a lot of ways and gone in a lot of ways, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. And so there was a lot of things I might not have got. And so through addiction, chasing feelings, trying to heal from the past and everything, I didn't heal at all. So then when I had kids, um, it's like, wow, okay, what do I do now? And you can kind of know what not to do but there's a million different ways to do the right thing. And some ways are better than others. Back to results, driven. And I made a lot of mistakes through addiction, as a parent. I've talked to a lot of parents that were addicts, and they've all said things like, I might have been an addict, but I still took care of my business, or my kid never saw this, my kid never saw that. And our kids may not have ever saw us, physically get high or in that act, but there's no way they didn't see the effects, on our mood, how we acted, the way we
Mm-hmm.
came at them, disciplined them, talked to them, whatever. And so how I was then versus now, and the things that I went through, the way that I came up versus now, totally different, totally different. And with that comes a lot of guilt. When you have multiple kids, you make some mistakes with your first ones. I think it's natural that, kid 2, 3, 4, you turn your life around, and these kids don't have to go through the things that these kids did. And, it's just, it's a whirlwind of emotions, man. When your past is kind of constantly still a part of your present. You know what I mean?
Mm, mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, what I think was dope about your story and your journey is how you kind of took the things that you went through, your test, and turned them into a testimony to start working with fathers, right?
Yeah,
So what kind of gave you that push to uh, step out there and start doing work in the fatherhood field and start working with dads?
man. The fact that somewhere like that existed is what it did. When I found a place like that, and they helped me turn my life around and gave me, the soft skills, the skills I really needed to delve into emotional intelligence and work on really healing. When I went there and I started doing the work, coming to the groups and seeing that there was a network like that that existed, I was like, yo, I gotta be a part of this. This is super
Hmm.
dope. And so luckily, after graduating the program, turning my life around, um, and volunteering and hanging around, they're like, okay, man, you done been around forever. We're gonna put you on the payroll now.
Let's get this guy a job, right?
Yeah, right. You might as well be.
He won't leave us
But
alone. Let's give him a job.
but it's like I told them right then and there that now I know what I want to be when I grow up. And it was the first
Mm,
time in my life I ever felt like I had a purpose or knew what
mm,
my thing was. My mom told me my whole life that God had a purpose for me. And I am a
mhm,
man of faith. And she keeps saying, I'm praying for you all the time. Jesus told me you have a purpose. And I
mhm,
kept wondering what it was, what it was. And I finally found out, in those moments when I sought help and seen the network that exists out there for guys and fathers.
mhm.
It's like, yo, okay, wow, I never thought something like this existed, but now that I know, I want to be a part of it.
Right,
And
right,
give
right.
basically it's
So,
about giving back, man. You know what I mean? I want to give back
mhm,
something because having that help changed my life, man. I don't know where I would be if I didn't come across that group or that organization at that point in time. There's no telling what the trajectory of my life would have been or for my kids.
mhm, mhm. Now, when you decided to start working in the field of fatherhood, I know what. Well, let me ask. I don't know. Was there any um, maybe pushback from you, that not from you, but from folks who were around you outside of the group, who were like your friends, your family, uh, maybe encouraging you to not jump into doing this kind of work?
You know what? I had to have a conversation, right? Because my story, what comes with me is part of the work I do. It's the vein everything runs through. So, but it's not just my story, right? I've got a mom, I've got a sister, I've got a dad, and I had to go have some conversations and be like, hey, I've got to be open and honest about some things in the public, what I mean, to be able to help people. And so that
Hmm.
was one conversation I had to have, is because, like I said, it wasn't just my business or my story going out
Hmm.
there. And so I had to make peace. And my mom was like, hey, you got to do whatever you got to do to heal and to find peace in your life. So And but you know how it goes, man. You know when you're putting family stuff out there, you got to make sure, hey, is this okay to say?
Yeah.
So that was a
Yeah.
conversation that I had to have. But
Yeah.
luckily, man, when I got in the field, I had full support and blessings of my family. They saw, like I said, man, they saw what the group did for me. They see me go from where I was to who I became. And so they was on board with the organization and the work they did.
And a lot of times, when it comes to, like you said, putting family business out there or putting your story out there, there is a sort of shame that people try to put on you, right? They try to give you, um, all sorts of excuses and reasons why you shouldn't talk about things. And I think another big part of your story is your mental health journey. And I've heard you talk about some of the mental health aspects of things. How, as a dad, have you managed to balance that side of things while still just, trying to manage and trying to raise your kids and trying to do everything that you could do to be the best man that you can?
Man, it's hard. It's hard. And I
Mm,
just recently went through like the one of the most difficult 3 months of my life, um, emotionally, mentally,
mhm,
and through mental health, right? There wasn't anything that really happened that brought it on. And it along with it came like a moment of realization, right? Because my wife had made a comment to me that, you need to figure some things out because you're worrying us. And I'm like, what do you mean us? She's like, the kids, they can tell that something's off. And I'm like, dang, I'm supposed to be as the father, a pillar of strength, right? I'm supposed to be something constant and consistent and safe for my kids. And the idea that they were unsure or uncertain because of the vibe I was giving off really hit me, man, because when you're going through things, mentally as a parent, of course you don't want your kids to see it. You don't want them to worry with you. But I also at the same time want to model how you deal with things. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
it's kind of a balance between what do they see, what don't they see, right? But because my kids go through difficult things too. So as I'm dealing with my stuff, I'm open with my kids. Hey, dad goes to therapy, dad goes to counseling, because sometimes we need someone to talk to. And so I do want to encourage that. So I'm open in that regard to
mhm,
them about, getting help. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally okay to not be okay sometimes.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's important that we include our family, particularly our children, in our journey, because we want to be sure that they have the tools, right, that they need going out into this world. One of the things that was really important to me as my daughter went off to college, I thought it was really important to be sure that she had the tools to manage all of the things that come with being a young woman in college at 18 years old, right? You send your kids off to college, but nobody ever talks about how hard it is for them to be away from their family. Nobody ever talks about like how hard it is for them to manage the expectation of like keeping their grades up. Nobody ever talks about the pressure that comes along with being on social media and just all of those things, imposter syndrome. So it was important for me to put those tools in place so she would at least know how to access them. Whether she decided to or not would be her decision. But okay, if you need therapy, this is where you can go. If you need the suicide hotline, this is who you can
Yeah.
call. If you need, you know what I mean? If you feel like you're in danger, this is what you can do. If you, are in a car with somebody or at a party with somebody and everybody's drunk, you need to call Uber or like all of those things. And we had to have those conversations that for parents, for some of us, can be tough. You know what I mean? Like those conversations can be hard, but it's crazy that these days you have to have those conversations with the young people, regardless of how hard it is, right? Because it stretches us. You know what I mean? And we can't grow if we don't stretch. You know what I mean? And I think being able to have those conversations with her prepared me for the things that are going to be coming in the future for her brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. And I think there's a lot of things that we talk about today as parents that were never
Hmm.
talked about with us as kids.
Absolutely.
And, or certainly not as openly or as in depth as we kind of
Hmm.
take things as parents these days.
Hmm.
Because man, I'll
Hmm.
tell you what, it's the kind of the way that sex was, for example, the way that sex was explained to me versus how I explained it with my kid, my oldest son, was totally two different conversations, man.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's,
I tell anybody when I dropped my daughter off at college, I gave her a box of condoms and I said, look, you
yeah,
use them or don't use them, but you can't say that I didn't give them to you. You can't say that you didn't have them.
yeah,
Because I know
exactly.
look, the big box too, not the little small 3-pack. I gave her, I gave her the big box of Trojans. You hear me? Like
Yeah,
the one
yeah,
thing you cannot say is that I did not prepare you in this area. But if you
yeah,
need some more, hit me up. I'll grab them for you. Like
yeah,
don't even worry about it. I get them for you. But
yeah,
I think as dads, like you said, in this generation, man, there's some things that we just weren't prepared for. And as dads, I think we have to know where we are lacking and what we have to do to kind of pick up in those areas to provide that support, that emotional support that they need.
yeah, yeah. And man, I love it because I love things that challenge me, and I like
Hmm.
learning
Hmm.
new things. And one of the dopest things about fatherhood is that, like you said, if you're gonna be good at this thing, then you have to constantly be growing. You have to be,
Hmm.
because if you're
Hmm.
doing it right, if you're doing it and you're interacting with your kids, they're gonna put you in positions where you're forced to grow, where you're
Hmm.
forced to be challenged. And I love it, man,
Yeah.
because every minute of it's dope, and I genuinely want to be the best dad that I can be, and to do so requires me to be the best man that I can be first.
Mm. Mm.
And because that's what everything else is going to flow through, right? You can't be, I can't be, a terrible guy but a great dad. They go hand
Mm.
in hand.
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
and
Eh,
but back during my addiction and everything, man, I ran from challenges, or I didn't face things that I should have faced the right way. And
mhm.
the biggest change between then and now is just being about action, taking it, looking forward to that challenge, to that moment of growth, and being excited about expanding and stretching.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, let me ask you this: as a father of four, with a 16-year-old who is in high school and a 3-year-old who is in, I assume, preschool,
About yeah, yeah.
about to start preschool. Yeah,
Yeah.
how engaged are you in their education? Well, let me change it. How engaged are you? But also, how do you find the balance to engage in their education?
Oh, great question, man. I love Power School. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, I love
Absolutely,
Power
absolutely.
School,
Mhm,
because it's a great way for me to stay up with things with my oldest son who doesn't live with me,
mhm,
and so it's a way for me to check up on things. But as far as the kids that here that live with me, always, looking in with the homework all the time, man. I take it very serious. If if my kids were home and I was like, "Hey, Josie, come here," and you were to say, ask her, "What's something your dad always tells you?" She would say, "Reading is the most important thing I could ever learn,"
mm,
because I take education very serious with my kids. And the
mhm,
main
mhm,
thing that I drill to them is that reading is the ultimate freedom. If you know
mm,
how to read, you can teach yourself anything,
yeah,
and go anywhere you want to go. You can pick up a
mhm,
book and transform yourself literally and
mhm,
figuratively. And so education is huge. And so my wife, her and I, we tag team the homework. I might do the homework Monday. She got it Tuesday. I'll do it Wednesday. But
mhm.
very, very active on it. And
Have y'all gotten to the point where you're cheating on math homework yet?
yeah, I'll be like, I'm taking bathroom breaks where I got to YouTube something, right? Because I forgot how to figure this out, but I can't be like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, hold on, let me be
Right.
right back. I gotta be
I'll be
go to
right.
the bathroom real quick. And I'll be
Put
in
it in
there
my phone real
YouTubing.
quick.
Yeah,
Listen, man.
hey
When,
Siri,
right.
you know what I mean?
Listen, when my daughter got to, it was probably about maybe the sixth or maybe it was probably the sixth grade. It might have been a little bit earlier, but she was asking me these math questions, like to help her on her homework, and then
Yeah,
you cheat. And the bad part about it is you cheat, right? You use your phone, and and you think you got it right, and then you come back. They come back the next day and tell you that the answers was wrong, and you cheated.
yeah.
Oh man, that's the worst feeling ever. Like that is the absolute. That is the
Hey, that's
absolute.
so precious.
Yeah, man. You like, yeah, y equals mc
Yeah,
squared is the answer. And then she comes back and be like, no, dad, the teacher said no, it's x minus
yeah.
z y d squared. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I just forgot to carry the decimal or something.
Right, man. Don't nothing hurt like getting fourth grade homework wrong. It,
Right.
it, it just burns, man. And and the way they do things and arrive at the answers is totally different
Hmm.
than the process that we, especially math, like the new math is wild. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you do it this way? That don't make no
Right.
sense.
Right. Right.
But hey, it's another challenge, man. But yeah, it's wild, man. It's opened my eyes to how much I really did not retain from school.
Absolutely. Listen, man, Common Core math is something that I would never ever um attempt to try to master. Like
Yeah,
that's not my area of expertise. Like that's not my gift. I wasn't gifted
nope.
in that particular area. But my daughter actually is great in math and she excels in math and science. So it's really
Awesome.
good to see how she is really, kind of taking that bull by the horn. Another thing that you've done that I think is really great is that you have involved your kids in your entrepreneurial ventures. So let's talk about your business, the business side of you, and kind of how you've gotten your kids involved in what you're doing with that.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. So I did about 7 years in the fatherhood field, and about 2 3 years ago, I launched Removal. It's a pet waste removal business. So we go to people's house, pick up the pet waste, and haul it off. And install pet waste stations, maintain them for HOAs, dog
Mm,
parks, whatever. But man, the kids love it. They love dogs, and they're at the age where they think poop's funny, right? So they just go together so well. But I my son, especially the 10-year-old, he loves math, loves business, and just how things work. And so I love taking them out with me. They beg if they got a day off of school or there's something on the weekend I got to go do. They love going. And it's great being able to break things down to them.
mhm,
Because you get to show them, hey, this yard costs this amount of money and it took this long to do it. This is what it makes a month and blah, blah, blah. Letting them really see, okay, you get to see the value of the things that they get to do. Like, oh, they've even made comments like, oh, hey dad, this dinner costs, 10 yards,
mhm, mhm,
stuff like that. It gets their brains thinking like that. And both kids, the youngest boy and the oldest girl, they just got a spirit for it. And they're always
mhm.
talking about, starting a business and using the lessons that we've talked about. And man, I'm just looking forward, man, as they get older and more involved in things. And I'm hoping we can do something together, that the kids
Yeah.
really find something that they lock in on, that I can help them, push forward.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. I think that's important to. I've always been big on building like an entrepreneurial spirit in my kids, from everything to once I'm gonna say this is when I realized, I mean, when it really kicked in for me is that when my daughter was in Girl Scouts, um, at a young age, and she was the number one seller in her troop for maybe like 3 years in a row. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And at this point, like we were going hard. Like I'm talking about, we were like ordering cases and cases and cases, and just kind of like, we had a whole strategy
Here's the plug.
because her cousin was the number one um, cookie seller in the county at one point when she's older than my daughter. So they
Yeah.
gave us the strategy, like, yo, this is what you do, this is how you run the play. You can get more of these orders, you get the cases, and you just kind of boom, 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 boom. So my daughter ended up being the number one seller in her troop for like 3 years. But once I realized that the only thing they got from selling all of those cookies was like a patch or like a little bracelet or, something small like that. I was like, oh, you could make some brownies and sell the brownies at the barbershop for money that's going to actually go in your pocket. Like we
Yeah,
making them rich. I'm trying to get some bread for you. So once I kind of told her about that and kind of laid it out to her, ever since then, man, she's been working towards some sort of entrepreneurial, journey. She's
yeah,
sold hair accessories. She sold um uh, uh um like bonnets and do-rags, and now she makes jewelry and sells it on the college campus. We were talking yesterday. She actually texted me last night because she wants to start selling grills, like gold grills.
yeah,
So she is, coming up with a name, and she sketched out some logos. I was like, all right, well, how about on Sunday we hop on FaceTime and we do just like a brainstorming meeting, and we just meet and
yeah.
just kind of dump
Oh
some
man,
ideas out,
so
and we just kind of put some pen to paper and really, really kind of flesh things out for you. And I'm like, yo, whatever you are going to try to do, as long as you're doing something productive, I'm gonna help you as much as I can. Like,
yeah,
no questions asked. As long as you're doing something and it's productive, and I see that you are trying, you got my support 1,000%. You know.
yeah.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say that's awesome, man. I look forward to those days as they get older. And
Yeah.
I think the thing is, with entrepreneurs, man, is the power of it. It really is um, powerful, man. It could change generations, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of
Hmm. Hmm.
freedom that goes along with it. And I've always kind of had it in me, but just didn't really put the pieces together to figure out that's what it is. And
Hmm.
I think what I liked about it the most is the can do attitude, right? Because it's
Hmm.
all about doing what you can with what you have until you have more. And
Hmm.
I love that because anything my kids go through, I mean, like the number one thing I'm trying to teach them is that can do, right? Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's difficult. But, there you can handle it like this. You can get through it. and and just rolling with the punches, man, because it's so easy for something to happen and you get devastated and just give up and miss out on so much because you got discouraged so easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing about this generation, man, we hear people talk about um a lot of the times what this generation is not doing, but the fact that these young kids are making their own way out of almost nothing, right? A
Yeah,
lot of them, even the ones who have, blown up on YouTube or blown up on Twitch, or, they
yeah,
figured out how to create a career for themselves off of social media, or they've gone on YouTube. And like I ask my daughter all the time, like, how do you know how to do this? And she'll just be like, oh, I learned it on YouTube. Like,
right.
like it's nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
she'll spend
yeah,
hours and hours like braiding her own hair, like eight
yeah,
hours. I'm like, yo, how did you learn how to do this? And she'll be like, I saw it on YouTube.
yeah.
I'm like,
It's
wow.
crazy, man.
Yeah,
It's
like
a
it's a
whole
whole
nother world
different
for them.
generation.
Yeah, and I think depending on what age group you're in, or even how much you embrace technology as you grew up.
Mhm,
I think a lot of people or a lot of parents may not understand it because you look at a kid playing video games and we think just doing nothing, right?
mhm,
Certain
mhm.
generation does, because back when we was playing video games, it wasn't going to take you nowhere, right? Like
Yep, yep,
you might win
yep,
some bread on a Madden game, but you weren't really going to support your family on that
yep,
console.
yep.
Nowadays, playing video games you can turn that, like you said, Twitch, and a
Mhm,
12-year-old
mhm,
could be the man of the house or the breadwinner of the
mhm.
house. I mean,
Yep.
off Madden. And it's a crazy, crazy time to be a kid, man. I think kids these days are under more pressure than any generation prior,
Yeah,
nearly.
yeah. How do you think we as adults can kind of bridge the gap between the knowledge and experience that we have and the I'll call it the can do attitude that they have, because there are going to be some bumps along the way for them, that
Yeah.
there's going to be some things in the road that's going to come in and knock them off their feet that they don't see. How can we do a better job of bridging that gap?
I think the big thing is, man, giving them the space to feel that and experience that. Because for a lot of us, like if you grow up and something happens, get over it, man up, toughen up, rub some dirt on it, get up, you're okay. there was never no time to really process or feel something to make peace with it, to be able to fully move on. And
Hmm.
so I think that it's important to give that time, when those bumps happen, allow them time to process it.
Yeah. And for the dads who, because again, like you said, some of us, right, grew up in a generation where if you were playing video games, it was, oh, you're being lazy. Oh, you're not doing
Yeah.
nothing. What would you say to dads who are struggling to connect with these kids?
Grab them sticks. For real. Sit
learn
down and
learn
play
what route to run on Madden, huh?
right. Sit down and play a game, or even if you know what game your kid plays, go on Twitch or YouTube and type
Mm,
in that game and just see the madness and craziness around it, and
yeah.
how it's more than just playing a game. Like, your son may or your daughter may have real aspirations or even the talent to take it somewhere.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
all about digging further, man. Like, some of us had so much surface level parenting, right? Like,
Yeah.
brush your teeth, go to bed, go to school. Okay, how,
Right.
just boom, 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 do, man. Like, it
Hmm.
wasn't
Hmm.
trying to understand. Let me connect with you, feel things out, see your perspective, like the things that we're trying to normalize now.
Hmm. Hmm. I'll tell you, man, I consider myself to be a pretty okay dad, right? And I try my best to do all of the things that you just mentioned. But the one area that I fall short, I cannot for the life of me figure out how to play Roblox.
Yo, me neither. I can't do it. And that's my son's favorite game, man.
I can't,
Me and
listen,
him.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. I've tried. I don't know what the object of the game is. I don't know who the people are. And I'm
Hey,
actually tired of it, Joe. I'm sick and
man,
tired of it, okay?
I'm tired of buying Robux. Man, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of paying for them things, man.
Listen, I don't. It's like you get like I sit and my 5-year-old has picked it up so fast. Like
Yeah,
he's up there building. It's Roblox and what's the other game? What's the other joint? We had to delete
Fortnite's a
this one because
big
this was
one.
Fortnite. Yeah, 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 yeah. So we had to delete that one. That was too mature for him. But Roblox. Listen, man,
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what's going on in that. But and he's on that tablet. Whoa, 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 going up the escalator and building. I'm like, bro, you got it. I
Yeah.
listen. Show me some Legend of Zelda, some Super
Um,
Mario Brothers.
Tetris, right? Like,
Listen, man, give me a Game Boy, Jack. I don't. I
yeah,
listen. This ain't it, man. So,
I can't
it
do it, man.
that's where I fall short. Like I'm an okay dad, but Roblox, nah. If there are any dads out there who have mastered or come close to mastering Roblox, please, like, show your
Yeah,
boy some love. Like, give me give me some tips or something,
let's get
because
a master
this
class
ain't it.
going. We need help.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's talk about your strategies. I want to talk strategies because I think you have done a great job of kind of maintaining strong bonds. Like you said, one of your oldest son does not live with you. How have you been able to maintain those strong bonds with all four of your kids?
Man, the main part is something you touched on earlier about how every kid is different.
Mm,
So, it's when you get to know them, you figure out your way in with them, what you have in
mhm,
common, and how you got to come
mhm,
at it. Each one of them are all different and all respond differently to different things. And so it's tough juggling that, right? Because you've got all these different feelings and emotions and attention and so much you to go around. And so it's really just being intentional about the time that you do take, right?
mhm, mhm,
It's a lot, of course, it's a lot easier the kids that live with me, that, I get to make breakfast for every morning and tuck in every night, versus one child who lives with his mother and comes here, on holiday breaks and during the summer and everything.
mhm,
It's a lot more challenging connecting with him per se. But one of the ways is, hey, we've played Madden together, we've played Call of Duty together.
mm,
That was one way that was pretty dope. All these miles away is using video games to connect, and you're talking on the microphone and everything. So,
mhm, mhm,
open up a lot more while you're playing the game. But so using different strategies, man, like that, finding out what they're into and really just using it as a way to connect.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the prime example of meeting them where they are,
No
right?
doubt.
Because if that's what their focus is, then you have to find a way to almost infiltrate that space,
Yeah.
and that's how you begin to build a rapport, right? Because you all aren't living in the same home, so there is some rapport building that has to happen. There is some, when my daughter, when she was younger, of course, we were at one point we were living in separate states until she was 5. We were living in separate states, and technology wasn't what it is now, and of course, we didn't have that type of connection. So we would talk on the phone once a week, but I could only imagine like what type of tools I would have to use if she was older and we were living in separate states, right? So I would have to be creative to figure out ways for us to connect. And for me, I don't know what that would look like. Fortunately enough, I won't have to find out, but I don't know what that would look like, right? Because um, it would probably, and I'm just thinking it would probably just be FaceTiming or things like that. But I think as dads, what you just said is that we have to be creative, right? In order to meet them where they are, we have to create the space and we have to create the container for that meeting to take place. Like a lot of times as dads, I hear and see a lot of dads kind of waiting for the child to make the space or waiting for the teenager to make the space. They say, well, they don't want to be bothered or they don't want to do this or they don't want to do that. And they come with all types of excuses as to why they can't make the space or make the time or create that lane for them and the child to connect. And it's just an excuse and it only hurts the child.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, what you said is great because you are just giving a great example of what it looks like to go to that next level when it comes to connecting with your kids, even though circumstances aren't as perfect as we would like them to be.
Yeah, man. And you know what? It's you remember back in the day when text messaging first came out and it was like 25 cents a text.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd be paying like $1 million a week if they still
Mm.
charge per text because
Right.
that seemed to be how he wants to talk. It's never on the
Mm-hmm.
phone; it's through text.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we've done things like it's we both have a general same taste in music generally. So it's
Mm-hmm.
exchange of songs back and forth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos, TikTok videos,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, FaceTime, just connecting any way possible like that. Any common interest that we may have that we can use to connect together.
I tell people, man, sending TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube videos and memes is a love language.
Yeah,
Like,
no doubt.
if that's how you communicate, that's
No doubt.
like, you know what I'm saying. And it's funny. It's funny you said that. I was going to post that on Instagram. I mean, on Facebook the other day, as me and my daughter were exchanging. I can't remember what we were talking about. Um, but I was going to put on Instagram. I'm sorry, I keep saying Instagram, on Facebook. I was going to post that I'm so happy that I've gotten to a space where we can have those conversations, quote unquote, where we're exchanging funny videos because that's my form of communication. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be with my wife, whether it be with my homeboys. You know what I'm saying? Like we'll send
Yeah.
videos or gifts like towards each other, back and forth more than we actually have a conversation.
Hey,
Um,
I could write a novel and gifts. Like I could
mhm.
communicate like that all day long. That like that
Right,
that's me, bro. We good.
right, right. And like that's it. So, for me to actually have felt earlier this week, like that level of communication with my daughter,
Yeah,
it made me smile. You know what I'm saying? Like it really, really made me smile. Like, because there was one point where, I consider myself a gift master too now. Like I get busy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I get busy. And it was at one point where I would send her some joints. Like she would say something, I would send her the joint, and she wouldn't even laugh. And I'm like, yo, I know this one's funny. Like this is a funny,
yeah,
this is funny. But now, like, at 19, and she's a little bit more mature now, she'll at least give me a LOL or something like that. So I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I'll take that. You know what I mean? Or she'll heart it, or you know what I mean? Like, but
yeah,
before, man, she wouldn't even respond to the gift. I'm like, golly, this is a tough audience right here, man.
yeah.
Like, 15, 16, 17-year-old, they are tough, man. So,
Yeah,
I think that level of communication and figuring out, like, love languages look different now. And the way that people communicate and people's needs are different now. Just because of what technology has brought to us.
you're right. And the challenges they face these days are
Hmm. Hmm.
different. It's
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
man, I couldn't imagine growing up where every bad thing I did or every mistake I made was captured on video. Like I
Hmm.
couldn't
Hmm.
imagine living like that, man. They've got a lot of pressure on them
Hmm. Hmm.
because, like for example, bullying. There's a lot of great things that technology brings, like we've talked about, but bullying. It used to be like when we went to school, whenever you went home, it was done with, it was over. You know,
Yep.
Now it's like you're not even safe from it at home because
Hmm.
now it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it.
Hmm. Hmm.
People
Hmm.
can message you 24/7, and so there's no escaping it. But I mean, it's just between all those different things, man. It's just that age group, just man, they got a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, yeah. What role do you think, as fathers, we can and should be playing in terms of teaching our kids responsibility, teaching them about success, teaching them about hard work? Like, as dads, what do you think our role should be?
Oh man, and I think giving them a realistic idea of the real world of what things are going to be expected, right? Because it starts with the little things, making your bed or picking up your toys, right? We're really starting from day one, teaching them by things like
Hmm.
that. But once they get to the age where they start counting money in school and they start coming home with homework that's got dollars and coins on it,
Hmm.
that's when we talking money and responsibility and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so, but my kids are crazy. They all want jobs and can't wait to have five of them. So they say, right?
Tell them
Now
to
that
slow
they're,
down. Tell them to
yeah,
slow down.
my daughter, she is like she's 9 or 10, and she's got some money saved up, and every time she gets money, she's like, I can't wait till I'm 18 so I can have 10 jobs. I'm like, yo, you do not know what you're wishing upon yourself, child. Chill.
This ain't what you want. This ain't what you want.
Yeah,
Trust me, this ain't what you
you
want.
don't want that life.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
But really from day one, man, because that I feel like that's kind of our space, is to prepare them. This is what is going to be expected of you when you leave these doors. And
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
need to take care of yourself. You can't grow up with the idea that, as much as we wish we could be around forever, we're not going to be. I feel like our job is to produce, well-rounded citizens that can go forth and do good work in the world.
Right, right, right. What do you think your legacy as a father? What do you think your legacy as a father is going to be? What would you like it to be?
Man, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. Um,
Hmm.
so I can start living it out and making sure that's my legacy. I think it really comes down to is I would really want my kids to be able to say that my dad was who I needed him to be, and he gave me what I needed to be me.
Mm,
I think that's what I really,
mm.
really want them to be able to say.
And I think that's that's heavy because oftentimes we get so caught up in our kids being what we want them to be, and we don't consider what they want to be. Right? We have this image when our kids are born. We have this image of I want them to go to this college. I want them to do this. I want them to follow in my footsteps and do this. I want them to marry this type of person. I want them to be heterosexual. I want them to
Yeah,
be a straight A student. I want them to be all of these things.
yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I want my kids to be happy.
Boom. There you go,
That's
man.
it. That's it.
Exactly. I think people
I don't want
get
nothing
caught
else.
up in trying to relive their life through their child.
Absolutely.
I think that
Absolutely.
that happens a lot. And and you're right, man. It's just be happy is what it's all about. Live a life that's yours, because you know what, I,
Hmm.
I know a lot of grown folk that are waking up every day living a life that's not even the one they wanted for themselves, right? It's one someone
Absolutely.
had for them. You know, it's what they were told to be. And you know, there was a post on Facebook, I think, that you and I can, you know, talked about too, where it said something along the lines of, you know, normalizing not going to college or something along
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah, for
enough
sure.
out there for you. And,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, and talking about what they want and talking about looking at their strengths and everything, you know, going on that, man. It's, you know, there's some people that are made for college, right? That do well in a school learning environment, and there's other people that are better suited, say, hands-on, you know, a vocation, a trade, or something like that.
Hmm.
Or has a talent here and there. You know, college isn't the only way,
Right.
and you know, it's that's why it pays off to really be tapped in and tuned with who your child is, and what um you know, makes them smile, what their passions are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, happy, healthy, and whole is what it's all about for me. Happy, healthy, and whole is what I want my babies to be. Last question, man, as we wrap up, for any father who might be considering maybe starting their own business or stepping out as an entrepreneur, what do you think is a key piece of advice that they need to hear, especially in terms of balancing and finding that balance between family and work life?
All right. Well, the number one is, if you're thinking about starting a business, the number one thing I would say is start, because there's not going to be a perfect time. There's not going to be a perfect situation. If you're waiting for the perfect conditions, it's never going to come. Just start doing, and the rest will fall into place. And when it comes to balancing between family and business, you know, for me, my motive for going down the entrepreneur track was, my goal is to work less and make more, because it's all about how can I be home and with my family more and still be able to provide the kind of life I want to give them. And
Mm,
so your why matters.
mm.
So, you know, when your why, you know, when you're sure of it and it lines up with what you value in life, and you know, this should be family among other things, you know, that's the important part, man. It's what you're doing it for is going to push you on those tough days.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a perfect way to close out, man. I think that is a perfect way to close out this episode. Do you have any last words, sir, for the great folks and the great listeners of Dads in the Class? And tell people how they can follow you. Tell them how they can get at you. Tell them anything you want to tell them. Tell them how they can get you to their residence or their HOA to pick up the dog waste. Just the floor is yours, man. You got it.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, brother. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and talk, man. I love every minute we get together, man.
For sure.
As far as following me, I'm on Facebook, Joseph R. Stiltner. You can check me out there. If you're in the Horry County, Myrtle Beach area, check us out at reproval.com. You know, if you have a dog and don't want to pick up dog poop, we got you. Other than that, man, I'm online, just, you know, Joseph Stiltner at outlook.com if you'd like to talk further or have me on something, you know, but I'm just
For sure.
grateful to be out here, man, be able to talk with you and hopefully assist some fathers that may be on the fence or may feel like how we did, man. Hopefully something connected tonight with somebody.
Definitely, definitely. All right, man. Thank you for joining the show. Dads in the Class podcast. Be sure to find us where you find all your favorite shows, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere we out there. Also, be sure to connect with us on Facebook and on YouTube via the Glad Dad pages. All right, so we'll holler at y'all on the next episode of Dads in the Class. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.